Welcome to the Main Street Moments podcast. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. All right. Now, it's been talked about for quite some time, and now it's about to happen. And this is Disney World losing control of their own city, of their own government, the Reedy Creek. And there's a big story that came out over the weekend about this and what Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and the state of Florida are about to do, which is, in essence, the state of Florida is about to take over Walt Disney World. And this is even more severe of a change than Disney was expecting. So it's being widely reported everywhere. I have a story here from NBC News, but it's in many news sources. So I'm just going to read through this, and we'll talk about it as we go. From NBC News' website, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will seek to bring Disney's special governing district under direct state control in a bid to end the entertainment giant's multi-decade arrangements with the Sunshine State. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to appoint a new board to control Reedy Creek, the self-governing area that is currently de facto run by the Walt Disney Company and allows it to maintain its own infrastructure and public services. It was created in 1967. The district, controlled by Disney, also allows Disney to raise taxes, issue bonds to finance the expenses required to run services for Walt Disney World's resort. Okay, now there's some more here, but before we go on, this is big. Now, a lot of you may not realize that Walt Disney World, as big as it is in two counties. It's in Osceola and Orange County. And originally, the way that Florida was threatening to take this away is they were going to just do away with the Reedy Creek, and it was going to be in the two counties. Now, what's happened is much different. The state of Florida, the governor of Florida, is saying the state is going to take over Reedy Creek, and the governor and the state of Florida are going to appoint the leaders of Reedy Creek, not put it in charge by these two counties. And I'll tell you, a lot of people don't realize this, and a lot of people know that Disney has their own city and their own government. But they leave something out of there. Disney not only can raise taxes, they handle their own building permits for everything that's been built in the park all these 50 years. I imagine they even control the food inspections and things like this. And Disney's got a lot of money. They've alienated the state of Florida big time. And they probably thought that if it went to these two counties, at the county level, Disney has so much money they could get influence over the county commissions in Osceola and Orange County, that things would be relatively the same. But now that the governor of Florida and the Florida state legislature, which is at odds with Disney, is actually taking over and appointing people. You know, people that get appointed to positions like this are politically connected. So people are going to be put in charge of Reedy Creek that are at odds with Disney. This is going to be very rough for Disney.
I don't think Disney saw this coming. I didn't see this coming, where everybody assumed it was going to fall under the jurisdiction, like you said, of the counties. And people here locally were talking a lot about how residents of those counties were going to have to pay all these taxes. Well, that's not so. Apparently, it says the governor said that Disney will have to pay up to $700 million in Reedy Creek in that debt.
Yeah.
They said initially that the residents would have to pay that debt. No, the governor said Disney will have to pay that debt. And maybe that has to do with putting it under the state's jurisdiction and taking that burden off the locals there. But it is going to, they're going to put it up for a vote. I'm sure it'll pass because this is a Republican legislature and they pretty much vote the way DeSantis wants them to vote. They're all kind of in the same head. So I think this will pass when they vote on it. And like you said, then a board will be appointed. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I really thought Bob Iger was going to be able to come in and remedy this for Disney. And I'm sure he has tried.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. They're going to follow through with this. Yeah. You know, there's other theme parks in Florida. They don't have this special status that Disney has set up for Walt Disney World.
You know, Disney, when this story first broke, I don't know, a year or however long it's been, about the Reedy Creek being dissolved. Now it's not being dissolved.
Like last summer, I think.
Yeah, now it's not being dissolved. It's being taken over by the state of Florida's state government.
Yes, that's a little different than we thought.
It's a lot different than what was said. It's actually, things have gotten worse, and a lot of people have been saying that have been talking about this, that, well, Bob Iger came in, and since Chapek's gone, things are going to be better off, and Iger's going to do anything. Bob Iger is a Democrat, and Ron DeSantis is a Republican who's expected to be running for president. And there's no way that he is going to back down or cave to Disney. It would be devastating for him. The other thing, too—
Plus, he just won in a landslide victory.
That's right.
So he basically flipped Dade County. Dade County is typically blue, and they voted for him, which is very unusual. Yeah. So he's got a lot of support for this, I'm sure.
So not only did Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, not back down, he's come in a lot more heavy-handed on Disney. Yeah. And people that were talking about this when the story first broke, when Florida started going after Disney on this, they started talking about Disney moving to another state, which is just stupid. I mean, this isn't the state fair or some local carnival. You just can't pick up these rides and move them. What's happened with Disney, and the reason that this got so bad is when they had this first conflict between the governor of Florida and Disney, and when the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, started calling out Disney on different things, what Disney did was just they did something that was not a very smart business move. Instead of trying to work things out with Ron DeSantis and the Florida state legislature, what they said that they would do, because remember, Disney World may be in Florida, but the corporate offices are in California. Right. So it was a fight between the California Disney corporate office and the state of Florida. And what they said they were going to do was donate money to get all of them thrown out of office in the next elections and back their opponents.
Which was like a threat, basically.
They threatened, Disney did, to take over the state of Florida and throw out all of the state legislature and the governor out of office. And what Disney has forgotten is they are a guest in Florida. They don't own Florida. And I think there's a lot of arrogance from Disney. Disney World is the number one tourist destination in the world, and it is important to Florida. But it's not the largest employer in Florida. It's not as— Walt Disney World's importance to Florida is big, but it's not as important to Florida as it was in the 60s and 70s when the deal was made in the late 60s. And
it's important, though, to Orlando.
No, it is important.
It's very important.
I'm not saying
to that area, but to the state, Florida will go on if Disney was just, say, hypothetically closed, which is never going to happen. Yeah. But it is important to that local economy. But now the local economy is no longer— like you said, they were going to dissolve the Reedy Creek, and now instead of dissolving it, he's going to have the state take that over. Well, so it'll be interesting to see what this means.
A lot of people don't know this. When Walt Disney made the deal with the state of Florida, Walt Disney was an anti-union Republican. Most people probably don't realize that today, and he was anti-union because he was building all these parks and everything. He didn't really want to have to deal with the unions, and Walt Disney was an anti-union Republican. And the Florida governor that made the deal with Walt Disney was a Republican governor of Florida back in the late 60s. And today, there's no friendship between the two. I'm not going to go through more of the article because it's a bunch of details and minutia. But in the end, what's going to happen is it's going to cost Disney a lot of money, because Disney, having their own government with Reedy Creek, they can do whatever they want to do when it comes to building and anything else. And if they don't back off and they don't make friends, they could very easily come in the state of Florida through Reedy Creek and reevaluate all the construction that has happened at the Walt Disney World parks and resort area all these years. I'm sure everything's up to code. I'm not saying things aren't up to code, but they could go after them on things, including future construction and stop future construction and all kinds of things.
It says here, if you read the order that DeSantis put through on Friday, and it's a lot of legalese, but it says they're revising the powers of the district, increasing state oversight, accountability, and transparency of the district. District is referring to Disney revising the selection process, membership qualifications, and compensation for the governing body of the district, ensuring debts and bond obligations held by the district remained with the district and are not transferred to other governments. So they're responsible for their debts, district's authority over local permitting and regulation. It says they're going to revise that. So they're no longer going to have that power for permits. They're revising the district's regulatory framework and structure, instituting reporting requirements, including review of the district's remaining powers, describing the district's boundaries and name, revising exceptions, blah, blah, blah. So lots of things happen.
Here's the thing. I think most people will agree that Disney has taken guests for granted at the parks. And they've also been taking the Reedy Creek for granted in the state of Florida for granted. And
none of this would have happened.
And Disney as
if Iger was in charge the whole time. I don't think this would have happened at all. He's too savvy. He wouldn't have let this occur. And this is all because Chapek, with all the wokeness and all the stuff that they went on and threatening DeSantis and the government here, that's why this all occurred. I don't think Iger would have let it get that far.
I would like to hope not, but it has. And I think in the end, though, Disney's going to be better off for us as people that go to the parks, because Disney has just gotten too arrogant with not just Florida, but with the guest experience and everything else. And I think they need to be humbled a little bit.
It's interesting because when you buy a ticket or you have annual passes, that's like a contract. And I wonder, and now Disney's always been autonomous with their contracts and as far as the rules of the contract and all this stuff, I wonder when the state takes over, if they're going to look at those contracts and they might say the reservation system is a violation of those contracts. They might go in and see how Disney's running things and say, you can't do this. And, this is a violation of the annual pass, or this is a violation of the ticket. And so on and things like that. Or they might say hypothetically, you can't charge people for this or for that or whatever, because now they're going to have another entity, another board that may or may not be friendly to Disney that is going to lay down the hammer on them. They've had complete autonomy on everything they've ever done. And I'm not really familiar at all with like other parks like SeaWorld and Universal, but I'm sure there's certain standards and things they have to follow that are run by the local government or the state or whatever they fall under. This is going to now fall under the jurisdiction of the state government, which is being run by Republicans right now. And I'm not saying they're going to be vindictive about it, but they might make some changes might be coming because of this.
I'm all for
parks
that.
And the way things
I'm
are
all for
being
that.
run. Or maybe they're going to say to Disney, you're charging you're going up on your ticket prices too fast. You're charging too much. I mean, I don't know if that works with a private corporation. I don't know if they could call it price gouging. I don't know how that works, but we'll see how involved they get with this.
Yeah. Now, there's an update on Tron. I'm going to make a bold prediction here, okay? And we won't know the answer to this until after Tron opens, but I'm going to make a prediction. I think Tron Light Cycle Run is going to be one of the most disappointing major attraction openings in decades at Disney. And that's saying a lot because there was a lot of disappointment in Galaxy's Edge. I know everyone likes Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's Run. Don't get me wrong, but Tron Lights. There's an update on Tron Light Cycle Run, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But Tron is a short ride. It's not as long as I think people realize, and I'll tell you, I think they're going to run into a problem. And this is a problem. Okay, we've seen the ride in China. I'm sure everyone's gone on YouTube and watched endlessly the ride in China. Americans are larger than Asian people. And they do have, on the light cycle, they do have the cars where you can sit in normally, like a roller coaster car at the back on the trains. I know a lot of you have seen those. I've seen those. They have those at the ride in Shanghai. But those out there are for people that are disabled. And in Florida, I think the light cycles, and I'm not saying this as a jab at Americans, please. I'm an American. Don't misunderstand me. I just don't think the ride is meant for the average size of an American.
Maybe the
that's going to
seats
be
are
a problem.
bigger. Maybe the seats are bigger.
I sat on it when they had the cycles out there for
Right.
display, and I think a lot of people are going to have a hard time with it. I think the ride is going to be too short.
Well, Americans are certainly not only taller, but in general have a wider girth than people probably in China.
That's what I mean.
I think that's a fact.
Yeah.
And that might be an issue where people get on the ride and, like you said, are uncomfortable or have trouble because you are sitting and leaning forward and you're in a more confined area. You have something like holding you in. It's definitely different than any other ride I've ever seen.
Well, there was a YouTube channel that has not put a video up in a long time, Pammy Plus Parks.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't know what happened to Pammy Plus Parks, but Pammy Plus Parks used to her whole YouTube channel was about larger size people.
Plus size.
Yeah, plus size people on the different attractions at all the theme parks.
Yeah, she has a great channel.
And I don't know of anyone else that has a channel that's focused just on that. But she's
active on Facebook, but she hasn't done a video in a long time.
But that's going to be a problem with Tron Light Cycle. I think a lot of people are going to find themselves disappointed, not just in the ride time, but how comfortable or uncomfortable it is.
And you might have people waiting to sit in those cars in the back.
It's gonna,
and there might be a real backup to sit in those, but we'll see.
Well,
but it does look like a short ride.
And if you look at like the number of wheelchairs and electric scooters, like like you, Kathy, you have a electric scooter. There are a lot of them at the Walt Disney World Resort, and it's just not a ride that's made, I think, for so many people. But now there's a bit of an update. Disney World has confirmed that all loose articles must be stored in lockers or left with a non-rider in order to ride Tron Light Cycle Run at Magic Kingdom. Now, this is the first time that Disney here in Florida that I know of has required a locker. Now, at Universal, they do that all the time. I mean, you ride anything at Universal that, even the Mummy, you've got to put everything in a locker.
Yeah.
At Disney, there's a pouch or something on the ride, and this fits into what I was telling you guys. We were talking about how they banned vlogging and filming on Space Mountain. I said this was going to spread. That means you're not going to be able to do it on Tron Light Cycle Run unless you have like a GoPro strapped to you.
I don't even know if they'll let you do that.
I don't know.
Because it's a very fast ride. And if they want you, they might make you put that away too. So that'd be 2 rides you wouldn't be able to film on or do a live stream.
Unless you do the GoPro. But Universal,
if they let that.
At Universal, it depends on who's working that day. But at Universal, they'll tell people to even put GoPros away on rides. They do not let you.
I know, because our daughter tried to film the Hulk. She loves that ride once, and they absolutely would not let it happen.
It's not just Hulk. You can ride almost anything, and they will not let you film on the rides at Universal. Depends on who's working, how much they crack down on it, and this is a big move at Disney, and this shows you here with this locker system. Now, I know what
this is another thing that could happen with the state running Disney. They might see it as a liability. And they might say to them, you can no longer allow people that come in the park to film rides or do this or that. They might have some kind of law against that or something.
Well, I do know this, that everything I see at Disney is Disney. This is another example of them cracking down on filming on a ride. And when we talked about the banning of the filming on Space Mountain, of course, we heard from a lot of the vloggers, a lot of the YouTubers, and they're like, "There's not going to happen, and you can still do it. You got to do this, and you can't, unless you got a GoPro on." So I really think there's a move from Disney to crack down and slow down as much of the vlogging experience as they can, and for whatever reason, I think a lot of it has to do with they've lost control of the messaging on things. So speaking of vlogging, though, I made a reservation today for Epcot on Friday to go to the art festival at Epcot, and I'm going to vlog the art festival, and I'm going to ask you guys to let us know in the comments, what are some things that you think I could film at the art festival at Epcot on Friday that you'd like to see? And, that's kind of I haven't been to a festival on an opening day in a long time. and I'm going to go on opening day just because I was going to go up anyway, and I was going to go to the Magic Kingdom, and then I saw when I went to make the reservation, the art festival is this weekend. Mm-hmm. First day. So I'm going to go on opening day of the art festival. I'm going to vlog it. So if you let me know in the comments some of the things that you think maybe I should vlog at the art festival. I'm not a big fan of the festivals, and I know that's a controversial thing to some people, but the reason that Epcot started having festivals is because park attendance at Epcot years ago was low. So they started doing the festivals, and now it's an endless festival. And when they were doing the upgrades at Disney, at Epcot, I talked about the festivals then. Do they still need the festivals? You've got Ratatouille, you got Guardians of the Galaxy now. You've got attractions that are bringing in people to come. See, what happened with Epcot when it was new, people went to the park, but they only went once. So they're trying to get people to come back, and they started doing the festivals to get people to come back. But I think there's enough attractions at the park now that we don't have to have endless festivals.
I think they should have a movie festival. I think they should do a movie and combine that with the arts and show and I've thought this for years, and they could have like screenings of new and older Disney movies around the park, like on buildings or on screens. Like they have that big theater, and they could have a schedule of movies, and they could bring in people to talk about the movies, like they have when they do like premieres,
like
and
the
stuff.
Mandalorian actor.
Anybody from that, they could have a panel of people like they do at Comic-Con and stuff. But I think a movie festival would be much more fun. I personally, and look, hey, I'm an artist. I was an art major in college, but I find the art festival boring. I'm sorry. I mean, it's overpriced art that is just ridiculously expensive.
And our dog agrees. You can hear her in the background.
Agrees with this. Yeah, and I agree with you. There's a lot of sameness to the festivals, but
yeah, there is, and. The reason I'm not a big fan of the festivals is the food booths take up walking space, and it's so crowded.
And the lines are so long.
It's so crowded to walk through the park at Epcot when there's festivals going on, because it's not just the booths. It's like you said, the lines of people in the booths.
Well, and then they have these ridiculous, like a merch thing, like the Figment popcorn bucket. People actually waited in line for 6 hours for that thing. It's going to be coming back, and I definitely don't want you getting me a popcorn bucket. I think it is absurd to wait in line for 6 hours of your day for something, unless you absolutely love Figment and have to have this piece of plastic that's probably costs $1 to make. I just find it ridiculous. So you have people in line for hours and hours and hours. They hype it up, and they make you think because they give it that's like limited. And then you see it on eBay for $500. Like, I have to have this. You don't have to have this. Don't waste your time in line for 6 hours. But you're right. When they create lines like that, it's a nuisance to people in the park. But Epcot's a big park, which is nice. There's a lot of room to walk. It's not like Magic Kingdom. You have wide walkways, which makes it a little easier.
Not so much
but
when
these long lines are tough sometimes.
Not so much with the booths there. My favorite time to go to Epcot is when there is not a festival.
That's the best time to go to Epcot.
Going in between festivals. And the thing about the festivals, I mean, like, there's certain things about the different festivals I like. Like the art festival, I do like the sidewalk chalk looks pretty cool and stuff. My favorite is the Flower and Garden, because you got the topiaries and the flowers.
Yeah, those are really neat.
And I love going through that butterfly house thing they have. It's pretty cool. But really, with a few differences, every festival is the same. The food booths and everything, that should be like the Food and Wine Festival. Like, when the Food and Wine Festival is going on at Epcot, I feel like it's not a festival because they have the food booths at all the other festivals. The Food and Wine's like missing something. It doesn't have the art. It doesn't have the gardens and all that stuff. And it's just there are just too many festivals. They don't need them, and I really don't like them. The only reason I'm going is because I saw, it's opening day. Let me go to opening day at a festival. I haven't been to one in a while. I'm going to vlog it. And I'll see, but you guys let us know in the comments, what do you think about the festivals? Do they still need them? Because these other attractions are pulling in so many more people now. Do you find the festivals annoying? And one thing about Epcot that I personally experience, out of all the parks, Epcot is the hottest park.
It is really
And
hot. There's not as much of a breeze.
I'm not 100% sure why that is, but I think part of the reason
it's really hot there.
Is you're so crammed in with the people with the booths during the festivals that the body heat on top of not getting the breeze and everything else, it's the hottest of parks to go to. I've had near heat strokes multiple times at Epcot over
this. A long time ago, and I'll say the one thing I like about the art festival, I do like those art installations where you become part of the art.
That's cool.
That's really neat. And they have some pretty cool art there when you do that. But I will say this about the parks. Back in the 80s and 90s, even in the 70s, the trees had just been freshly planted. Like when Epcot first opened in 82, we would go there, obviously not together, but Brian and I both lived in Florida, and we would go with our families. And a lot of the trees had just been planted. And if you watch videos of the Magic Kingdom from the 70s, when I used to go as a kid, the trees were new and they were small. They had not fully grown at all. And you didn't have this huge overgrowth. You could see the sky and you could see from one area to the next. And a lot, like if you go on the Jungle Cruise, you go on it now, the trees are so huge. But if you watch a video from the 70s, those trees are very small. And the point is, the parks were cooler then, because there was more of a breeze that could get through. And now it feels in some places more claustrophobic because you have so many trees. I like trees, don't get me wrong. You have so many trees that block that breeze. So I think the parks in general feel hotter than they did when I was a kid. There was just more of a breeze back
If you see any video of Epcot from the 80s, it was a lot different than the now. And you may see, when you watch the older videos, you may see like the double-decker buses driving around.
Yeah, they don't have those anymore.
No, they don't have them anymore. And
those were cool.
The double-decker bus that you see driving around Epcot is now at Magic Kingdom on Main Street.
Yeah.
And you can see on the steering wheel of that bus, it has the Epcot Center logo on it.
I remember that double-decker. In fact,
like where the horn would be on the steering wheel has the Epcot Center logo on it at Magic Kingdom.
I remember we took Emily in the early 2000s to Epcot. And it was Christmas time, and we were there right when the park opened, and the double-decker pulled right up full of the characters. It was
That's right. They used to do that at Epcot.
It was so cool. And that double-decker would go around, and they used to have parades at Epcot, too. They don't do that anymore.
They had, I can't remember what the parades were called, but they had a parade that went around the World Showcase.
Right.
And now they don't.
These huge puppets.
None of those things happen anymore, like the buses and the parades.
I think because of the festivals.
Because that's right. The booths take up all the walking space, and it's just What I used to like about Epcot, they've taken away. What I used to like about Epcot is that it was a relaxing park to go to.
True.
And walk around and take your time and enjoy yourself and be relaxed. And now, because of the food booths with the food booth lines and everything else, it's not relaxing. I find it highly stressful to go to Epcot during a festival. I find it very stressful.
I personally love the festivals. I think they take up a lot of space, and like you said, in the lines, and these lines for Figment, popcorn buckets, and all this stuff. And you're right, when you're walking through the park and the festivals, it's good. It brings more business to the park. I get that. But I used to like Epcot better when it was more relaxed and it wasn't as busy. And everybody was at the Magic Kingdom or at other places. And you could go to Epcot and be like, you know what? I'm going to go to Epcot. It's chill and it's less crowded. And now it's sometimes even more crowded, and it does get super hot with the crowds and the lines. It's not as much fun.
If you go to Epcot between festivals,
that's the best time.
You'll see it's even though the booths may be there taking up space, it's a much more relaxing experience. And I really miss that about Epcot. And I don't think I'm alone. And I know they make a lot of money probably off the festivals because people buy the food and the drinks.
The concerts are cool. The concerts are
well. They can keep the concerts. I'm not opposed to the concerts. I like the concerts and things like this, the Eat to the Beat and all that stuff. But I just don't like the crowds with the festivals, and that's why
there's a lot of them.
I have not gone to the last few festivals. I've avoided them. In fact, the last time I went to Epcot was during It was during a festival. It was the end of Food and Wine, I believe, was the last time I was at Epcot. It was because I didn't even go there during the holiday festival. Went there during the end of the Food and Wine, and I didn't even do any of the food and wine things. It was crowded because you've got these new attractions, Ratatouille and Guardians of the Galaxy. So anyway, let us know what you guys think. Do you find the festivals making the park too congested? Is there too much sameness to the festivals? I think yes to both of those questions for me, but I'd like to hear what you guys think in the comments. And also let me know again in the comments some things that I could vlog at the festival on opening day on Friday that you would enjoy seeing. Hey guys, we're all out of time for today. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.